This is the portfolio rubric guidance for 1 Nbt A1. Count to 100, starting at any number. Read and write numerals to 120, and represent a number of objects with a written numeral. Count backward from 20. This is the first grade standard. Before assessing your first grade standard, you may need to start with the kindergarten expectations. For kindergarten, the teacher is assessing the student's ability to count to 100 by ones, count backward from 10, and write numbers 0 through 20. This kindergarten portion has 3 parts. First, the teacher will ask the student to count to 100, starting at the number 1, and go to 100. Second, the teacher will ask the student to start at the number 10 and count backward to the number 1. And the third part, the teacher is asking the student to write numbers 0 through 20. Reversals are acceptable at the kindergarten level. Reversals of digits in place order value are not correct. For example, if the answer should be 12 and the student writes 21, that would be incorrect. The suggested tasks give you examples of how to assess this kindergarten portion. For writing numbers to 20, 0 to 20, a teacher could give a student a writing sheet and say numbers aloud, any number between 0 to 20, and the student writes that number. The teacher must say all of the numbers 0 to 20. They can say them in any order. Also, if you assess using this task, you must upload an answer key along with your student work, or put the answer key in the context narrative in order for a scorer to know the order and the numbers that the teacher has called out of order. Or, teachers could give the students a recording sheet and ask the students to begin at 0 and write to the number 20 in order. This can be done as a whole group assessment, in a small group, or individually. If students have mastered the kindergarten portion, teachers move on to the first grade standard. In the first grade, the teacher is assessing the student's ability to count to 120, starting at any number. Read numbers to 120, write numerals to 120, count objects from 100 to 20 and write that numeral, and count backward from 20. The first grade standard has 5 parts. Reversals are not accepted as correct answers for first grade. For each of these 5 parts, we have written out how to assess the standard. Again, it is 5 parts to this assessment, and all 5 parts must be included in order to be scored. First, the teacher will ask the student to count to 120, starting at any number. So the teacher says a number, and the student starts at that number and goes to 120. Second, the teacher can have flashcards with numbers 0 through 120 and randomly show students a card, and the student reads the number. Teachers must assess 5 different numbers. The third part, the teacher will call out 5 different numbers and the student will write the number. When calling out those 5 different numbers, the first number must be a number between 21 and 40. The second number must be a number between 41 and 60. The third number must be a number between 61 and 80. The fourth number must be a number between 81 and 100. And the fifth number must be a number between 101 to 120. After the teacher calls out the number, the student needs to write the number. The fourth part is counting sets of objects. The teacher will give the student a sheet with 4 sets. The first set of objects must contain 21 to 30 objects. The second set of objects must contain 30 to 50 objects. The third set of objects must be 50 to 75, and the fourth group must contain 75 to 100 objects. The student will count the objects and write the number. And the final part, the fifth part of this assessment, the teacher will ask the student to start at 20 and count backward to the number 0. There are some suggested tasks in the rubric for how you could assess those first 4 parts. The teacher could ask the student, for example, to start at 52, and the student starts at 52 and goes to 120. An example of the teacher using flashcards would be the teacher showing the student the number 78 and asking, "What is this number?" And the student says the number, reading the number. The teacher, again, will ask 5 different numbers to assess this part. An example of the third part would be the teacher saying, "Write the number 34, 53, 79, 88, 115. For the fourth part, the teacher could, when counting those objects on a piece of paper, the teacher could have the objects in 10 frames, 10 rods, and some ones, and it could be an array of objects on that sheet for them to count and write the number beside the objects. When looking at these tasks, the first task where the students start at a number and count to 120, that will be a video recording. The teacher asking the student to read numerals, that would also be a video recording. When the teacher says a number and the student writes the number, that will be a written product, but make sure to have an answer key included with that written product so scorers will know what number the teacher said for the student to write. The fourth part, when students are counting objects and writing the number on the sheet, that would be a student writing product. And then the fifth one is where students start at 20 and count backward to 0. That will be a video. After students have mastered the first grade standard, the teachers can move into assessing the second grade standard. In second grade, the teachers are assessing the student's ability to read and write 3-digit numbers in standard form, word form, and expanded form. For this assessment, for this standard that is aligned to 2 Nbt A3, you will assess in 2 parts. First, the student must be able to read the numbers. So the teacher will show the student a 3-digit number, and the student will read that number. The teacher must give the student 10 different numbers to read. This assessment is an oral assessment, and this must be a video. The second part, the teacher is going to say a 3-digit number, and the student is going to write it on paper in 3 different forms. They're going to write that 3-digit number in standard form, word form, and expanded form. To be correct, the student must be able to write the 3-digit number in all 3 forms. The teacher will give the student 10 different numbers, 3-digit numbers to write in each of those 3 forms. This can be a writing product, but the teacher answer key must be included in the context narrative or uploaded along with the student work in order to know what were the 10 different numbers the teacher called out for the student to write. In the suggested task area, you see an example of one way you could assess a number. You could use flashcards and students read the number from the flashcard, or you could have a sheet with the numbers written out on them, those 10 different numbers that they're going to read, and the student can read the numbers from the sheet. That is fine. For the second part, this is just one number you could do. There are 10 that you must assess. For one example would be, you would say 534. And then on paper, the student would write the 3 forms. 534 for the standard form, the words 534 for word form, and then for expanded form, 500 plus 30 plus 4. When thinking about the required method of evidence for all of the levels that are assessed for this standard, there will be 3 pieces of evidence to be uploaded for this standard, whether you're doing the kindergarten, the first grade, or the advanced second grade. 1, for all of the oral pieces, there must be a video recording. For all of the written pieces, there must be a writing product. And for all of the pieces, the answer key for any of those written components must be included with the student work or in the context narrative. Once you have your student work, it is time to assess using the rubric. A rubric is used to assess student work. Keep in mind, if you needed to assess your students on the kindergarten portion, you will score the kindergarten portions, those 3 parts, using levels 0, 1, and 2. If the student was not able to do any of the 3 parts, or they only were able to complete one of the 3 parts of the kindergarten section, that is level 0. If the student is able to complete with accuracy 2 of the 3 parts in that kindergarten portion, that is the level 1. If a student is able to complete all 3 parts of the kindergarten portion, that is the score of a level 2. If the student has mastered all of those parts, you can move to the first grade standard. The first grade standard has 5 parts, and all 5 parts must be assessed and uploaded as evidence of student work. When looking at those 5 parts, if the student completed at least three of the 5 parts with accuracy, that is the score of a level 3. If the student was able to complete 4 of those 5 parts with 100% accuracy, that is the score of a level 4. And if the student is able to complete all 5 of the first grade standard, that is the score of a level 5. If students are successful at the first grade standard, at either level 3, 4, or 5, you do not have to upload evidence of the kindergarten portion. If the student is successful with all 5 parts at level 5, you can move into assessing the second grade standard. Now keep in mind, there are 2 sections for the second grade standard. First, you are giving the students numbers to read. If the student can read at least 6 of those 10 3-digit numbers in the first part of the assessment, and they can also write at least 6 of the 3-digit numbers that were called out from those 10, and they are able to write those 3-digit numbers in all 3 forms, standard, word, and expanded form, that is the score of a level 6. If students are accurate in completing all of level 6, you do not have to upload evidence to show that they completed level 5. If the student can read at least 8 of the 3-digit numbers that were assessed in the first part, and they can write at least 8 of the 3-digit numbers in standard, word, and expanded form, then that is the score of a level 7.